Hey guys, Richard here with Downgrid Survival. So there's a lot going on right now in the world. The entire world is in commotion, and we need to talk about this a little bit because there's some things here that you've probably heard, and there's probably some things here that you haven't heard yet. But I wanted to bring this to you. It's getting pretty serious, and we've been saying this for months that things are out of control and things are getting bad, and prepare for this, prepare for that, and I just hope and pray that you're preparing, because without trying to sound like Canadian Prepper or some of these other warmongers out there, it's getting close. In my opinion, things are real close. And after I share with you and bring together some of the things that are going on in the world and paint big picture, I think you'll agree with that too. I've got some notes in front of me here because there's just too much. There's just too much. And so I'm going to be referring to my notes quite a bit here. First, let's talk about, there's news now that we have U.S. troops inside Ukraine. And of course, anytime there's a military operation and things going on, you're going to have some special forces behind enemy lines, spotters, gathering intel, that sort of thing. So that was a given, that we're going to have some people there. But now they're openly saying that we have troops in Ukraine, and their whole purpose is to conduct audits of the weapon systems and all the weaponry that we have sent over there. Because, as you've probably heard by now in the news, there's a lot of folks on the front line saying, you're sending over a lot of weaponry and we're just not seeing it. And this is coming from the soldiers directly that are out there, in the fight. And so there's been this big uproar about where is all this stuff going that we've been sending over there. And there was a report that came out this past week, and I think it was over on Redacted. If you don't follow Redacted, I encourage you to do that. They're great. But there's some video clips that came from inside Ukraine there, where convoys of weaponry, once it crossed the border, it would stop, and there would be cars and trucks just lined up, and they'd start loading this stuff into civilian vehicles. And presumably that's just, how they're transporting stuff to wherever it needs to be. But what they're finding now is there's a lot of this stuff that ended up in Europe, and there's a lot of it that ended up in Scandinavia. And so now we got military soldiers on the ground inside Ukraine conducting audits. Well, that could be true. That very well could be true. But it could also be an instance of a cover story where we've got troops inside Ukraine collecting human intelligence and establishing relationships and finding out really who is who and what's going on, because there's a lot of things that satellites just don't tell us, and it's a corrupt regime over there, and so we can't rely on what they are telling the world. So it could be some of that as well. But that's first. We got U.S. troops inside Ukraine now. Another one we've been hearing recently is that the buildup of the 101st Airborne Division right there on the border, and there's about 5,000 troops there, specifically from the 101st Airborne. Now, something for you to understand about the 101st is they are an air assault division. Their whole purpose is to take the fight to the enemy, not a defensive posture. And right now there's about 5,000 of them on the border, so keep that in mind. Here's some big news that came out of Saudi Arabia just yesterday. Saudi Arabia is sharing intel and saying that they have evidence that Iran is getting ready to attack Saudi Arabia in various locations. Now, they've done this before, so that's not new. Iran has attacked Saudi Arabia's oil fields on numerous occasions. But we still have American forces inside Saudi Arabia, and certainly in other places in the region. And there's now this intel that Iran's getting ready to fire things up and cause some trouble. So that is something to be concerned about. We've got, just yesterday, North Korea and South Korea are going at it. They're lobbing missiles toward each other just a little bit. Now, what's happening right now is on the South Korean peninsula, the U.S. military and the South Koreans and others are involved in a large military exercise. It's not anything new. I spent a year in South Korea, and I can tell you, with the number of people that we have there, which at the time was about 50,000 people, if most people stay there only a year or two, you can imagine that there's a lot of turnover every month. Every month there's a lot of new folks coming in. So they're constantly in the state of exercise where they're wargaming and they're practicing, because you got brand new people rotating in every month that need to get brought up to speed on the operations there and how things work. And so that's not new. I mean, there's always exercises going on there. But about once a year, they conduct a very large exercise, and they actually deploy people in from the United States and Japan and other places, and they conduct a larger exercise. Well, that's going on right now. But yesterday, North Korea decided they were going to lob, they counted at least 23 missiles, intercontinental and short-range missiles. They're lobbing these things. And one of them landed within 16 miles of the South Korea territory. It landed in the ocean, but it was within their territorial waters, okay? So 16 miles, so it got pretty close. And then in response, South Korea, they decided they were going to lob some missiles too as a show of force. And so we've got that going on. It's just another point of flare-up that the world is facing. Now, I haven't been following too much about what's been going on in Haiti, but apparently over the last year or so, since the president there was assassinated, things have just completely melted down. And now you've got these gang warlords that have risen up, and they're just wreaking havoc of the entire country. And it's a huge humanitarian crisis, and it's going to be one of these things where eventually someone's going to have to go in there to go up against all these warlords to try to quell the violence and to try to help the people. And so over the weekend, this Defense Secretary of State Blinken went to Canada trying to drum up support to get Canada to possibly go in there or maybe go in there with the United States. And they declined, supposedly. And we know the U.S. has reached out to others as well. And to this point, everyone is declining. No one wants any part of it because it's going to be nasty. It's going to be very bloody, and it's going to be really nasty if we end up going in there. But that's another point of flare-up. We've got B-52s going to Australia, supposedly for exercise and just repositioning some of our assets. But that was announced, and we just discovered. Now, let's talk about that for a minute, because I heard a rumor. This is strictly a rumor. And if any of you have any more information, share it below, because I'm trying to learn more about it. But I saw a couple people where they were on a video, and they left some comments talking about how the U.S. military has been dispersing their assets. And they referenced that military aircraft is kind of being dispersed among civilian airports and in various places where they're just kind of spreading things out. And that's very alarming. That's concerning if that is in fact taking place. Now, as a veteran, I am familiar with such things and participated in exercises where those type of activities took place. And the whole point is so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You got things spread around. So I guess my question is, is this happening? Is it part of an exercise? Was it a temporary thing? Or is it something that is happening and it's an ongoing thing where our military assets are being dispersed? If you have any information about that, please drop it down below. Let me know. Let's see. Here's a big one. This is huge. Russia is now accusing the UK of the sabotage that blew up the Crimea Bridge, as well as the Nord Stream pipeline. Now, Russia is claiming that they have evidence that the UK was directly involved, and they're making threats. And there's speculation now that Russia may actually try to get involved directly with Ukraine, with the United Kingdom. Supposedly, or allegedly, I guess is the word we should use. The brand new prime minister there, Liz Truss, right? She only lasted like 45 days. After Boris Johnson got the boot, she stepped in, conservative, and she lasted only 45 days, and then she resigned because she said, I can't get anything done. And it's largely true. Her hands were tied, and she wasn't getting any support from anyone, so she stepped down to get out of the way. But the short time that she was there, supposedly, she right as the Nord Stream pipeline was sabotaged, right after that explosion, within a minute This is what Russia is claiming. Within a minute of that explosion, and the gas company detected the drop in pressure, indicating that there was a problem with the pipeline. Within a minute, Russia is saying they intercepted a text message from her to the United States. If I'm not mistaken, it was directly to the Secretary of State. Yes, directly to the Secretary of State. And all the text message said was, done. If that text message exists, that's pretty damning evidence, okay? Within a minute of the explosion, sending a text message from her going to the Secretary of State saying, done. Yeah, I can see why Russia's just a little bit upset, right? So we've got that hanging over our heads, or we don't, but UK has that hanging over their heads. And if anything happens with UK, of course, we're going to be right there because we're such close allies. But that's significant and that's huge. So watch that closely in the coming days to see what's going on there. You may have heard, or you might have started hearing over the last couple of days, the huge unrest that is going on down south. And I'm talking about in South America. And we're talking about the largest country in South America. I can't say the name. But they held some elections there. And now they have a far left socialist in charge. And supposedly, he wasn't projected to win, right? And the people are upset about it. And they're taking it to the streets. Similar to what happened in Canada, similar to what happened here. You've got convoys of farmers and truckers and other people that took it to the streets, and they're shutting things down in protest because this was not the outcome that was projected. And now all of a sudden you have this individual that is claiming victory. And so there's huge unrest going right there. And clearly from what little bit I'm seeing is, this is a people that's not going to take it. They're not going to accept it, unfortunately, like we have here in the United States. So keep a close eye on that, because that is a point of flare-up, even though it may not be directly related to us here. We've got Elon Musk, has successfully invaded and taken over Twitter. We have reports that China is preparing to take on Taiwan by the end of the year. That's been out there now for a little while. There's still indications of that. So just be aware of that. And if that happens, somehow the United States will be involved, because we have always vowed to protect Taiwan and provide them support. And so if things kick off there, we're going to be right in the middle of it. Nancy says hello, by the way. There's an ongoing internal battle here in the United States. What am I talking about? I'm talking about we're just a few days away from the midterm elections. Anything can happen. That is a flashpoint. We have the fight for free speech, and this is huge. This broke yesterday. I'm not sure if you heard it yet. This is huge. So I don't know all the backstory. There was an analyst or somebody that was involved in some research into looking for some evidence for a lawsuit or something, right? But anyway, the point is, they found portals on allegedly on Facebook and also Twitter, and I've seen pictures of these. I haven't actually plugged in the address to go to it to see if it still exists, but there are portals there to both of those websites designed specifically for U.S. government officials, and we're talking about the FBI, you-know-who, the CIA, you-know-who, and the Department of DH, you-know-who, and also the people that live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where they can log in and specifically flag everything that they don't like, and then indicate whether it should be completely removed, whether it should be just held back in the algorithm so it's not promoted out, and also to flag items that they do want promoted out, so that certain narratives are promoted and other narratives are not promoted at all. This is that alone. If somebody has the courage to dive into it, will probably be the largest scandal in our nation's history, period. because it's significant. It's significant because it directly attacks our Constitution, our free speech. It deliberately allows our government to control the narrative, to control what you see, what you hear, which is going to influence what you do. It allows political candidates to silence the opposition, which we know has happened. We've all witnessed this. We've all seen these kind of things. We've all seen the fact checkers. We've all had posts that were taken down. We've all received warnings because things that we were saying that they didn't like. And for the most part, we thought it was just fact checkers, right? We thought it was fact checkers within Facebook. Then we heard Facebook saying no, that they outsourced a lot of this to another company, and they had people that were doing it. And, we were looking, people were trying to find out where's the guidelines, where do you come up with what is okay and what is not okay? And there's just a lot of turmoil around this. You've heard this for months, or actually for the last 2 years, we've been experiencing it. Well, now we know where a lot of it's coming from. It is coming directly from our elected officials to where they are going out there deciding what the people is going to hear and what the people isn't going to hear. So then think of how that plays into not just the elections, but just the mindset of the entire country, of what you believe in. You got people on the right who believe in truth and free speech and believe that certain things have happened that are certainly wrong and should not have happened and need to be investigated. And then you got a lot of people on the left who are driving up a lot of hatred and spewing a lot of lies and saying a lot of things and making a lot of accusations. And all this stuff is largely because of how certain material on these platforms have been promoted and certain material has been silenced. And I bet if we knew big picture, if we knew everything, we would probably come to realize that is the core of all of our problems. And that is the core of the division that is going on between us. Because there's so much gaslighting, so much misinformation, so much lying and corruption going on. And the only way the American people know about it is going out onto these social media platforms or turning on the TV. Well, we already know the government controls the media. We know that there are only, I should have looked it up prior to this video, but at one time I heard that there's only 3 or 4 people that own all the news outlets. Okay, all the news outlets are, ultimately owned by just a couple of people at the very top. And so they can dictate and control a lot of what's being said and what isn't. There's those videos out there where they've captured news anchors all across the country that are saying verbatim the exact same thing when they're reporting on a story. And all this came about back during the Trump days. And they were all saying the exact same words. And so we know everything is controlled. And so when you control the media, when you control the social media platforms so you can control individual voices like mine and others, then you can really control the mindset of the people. Largest scandal we've ever experienced. Let's see here. Stick with me. This video is getting long, but I knew it would be a long one. There is a rapid escalation in diesel shortages. We've heard about the diesel shortages. There's big news. It hit mainstream media just a little bit last week where they said we've got about 25 days worth of diesel fuel left. And though that sounds kind of, bad, but then they were also saying, well, it hasn't been this low since 1980, blah, 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 blah. So it didn't sound, really bad at all because, okay, that's just how much stockpile we have, but there's more oil coming in, and as people are using more oil, there's more oil coming in, right? Well, no. So remember Biden last month went to Saudi Arabia to ask them to increase oil production? And he also asked them for a political favor and asked them not to cut production until after the midterm elections. We know this because the Saudi prince or king, who is he speaking to, the prince or the king? I don't remember. Whatever royalty he was meeting with came out into the media after the fact and said this is what he asked us to do. He asked us not to cut production until after the midterm elections. Now that in itself is treasonous because now you're going to a foreign entity asking for a political favor. So that in itself was wrong. But the point is, Saudi Arabia cut production. And we haven't seen it yet here in the United States. We're not feeling the pinch. We're not seeing the fuel prices take another leap forward, another leap, jump higher, because of all the oil reserves that are being released. And so it's kind of keeping things simmered down a little bit because of the midterm elections. They don't want this information out. Therefore, it's not in the news media because they don't want this information out because the midterm elections. But the fact is, they're now estimating that we only have 14 days of diesel fuel supply left. Saudi Arabia has cut production, so there's not as much coming in from Saudi Arabia. We've cut production, so there's not much being produced here. And there are now reports that oil refineries are starting to shut down because they have nothing to refine. So let that sink in for a moment. If our diesel supply, in fact, dries up in, say, 14 days or so, what do? That's when everything comes to a halt. That's when the military starts parking equipment because they can't move it. Oh, wait, no, because the military specifically has the strategic oil reserves that they can rely on in case something like this happens. No, wait, no, because Joe Biden's been selling it to the Chinese. And he's been giving some to Europe, trying to help out our neighbors. Specifically, I heard that as far as the diesel strategic reserve for diesel, they've got about 1 million barrels. And according to analysts, they're saying that 1 million barrels will last about 6 hours. As far as how much is left as the regular crude for regular gasoline in our strategic oils, you know, I should have looked that up. I haven't heard anything recently as to what levels we're at, but I know it's getting significantly low because he keeps tapping into it and selling it. And I'm sure it's okay though. I'm sure he's making 10%. I'm sure he's getting his 10%. Yeah. What else here? So I said let that sink in for a minute. So also consider what that means for the economy, what that means for you and I, what that means for production of everything that we have, what it means for production, or the shipping, whether it be through ship, rail, truck, your Amazon deliveries, stuff showing up at your grocery store and your hardware store and other places. Potentially it all stops. Okay, is there a workaround? Yeah, there probably is. There's probably something, maybe. I don't know what, because if the Middle East has cut oil production and they don't have as much to give us, and we're already at a deficit, where's all this going to be made up from? Food crisis is continuing to boil over. We beat that dead horse. You need to stockpile food. You need to stockpile food. That's all I'm going to say about it. Let's see. Bear with me. I got a lot of notes here to go through. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to wrap it up because this video is getting long. So here's the thing. You hear me saying this, and the information is out there. You got to go look for it. Here's where you get a lot of the information. I'll try to put some links down below. I'm bad about that, but I'll try to get some links out there for you. But the reality is you're not going to find it here in the media from the United States. Well, because we got the midterm elections. Next week after midterm elections, all this stuff will probably come out, but we'll see. But a lot of this stuff comes from news outlets from other places that are watching and that are reporting on it. So there are other countries that are much more better prepared for what's about to happen than what we are. That's why you are watching this video, but chances are none of your family members will know, none of your neighbors will know. Anyone that you associate with at work or whatever, they probably have no idea about these things that are all getting ready to kick off all around the world because no one talks about it. No one talks about it. Yeah, all I can say is get ready. Get ready. No one knows when things are going to pop off, but everyone is pretty much in agreement now that things will pop off. And when it does, no one knows just how bad it's going to get. We're in a recession here. They still don't want to call it a recession. We got a shortage of military gear and supplies. We got a shortage of military personnel because people are getting out. New recruits are not coming in. We don't have the means to defend ourselves like we used to. And we got a lot of stuff working against us. And yeah, it looks pretty bleak. It is what it is. Until it isn't. And then it's something else. I don't know what to tell you. That's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching.